Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and just do another round of velocity banking practice in Microsoft Excel. So some of you may not have Microsoft Excel, but you can always get a free copy of the web version by going to live.com and registering for a live account. So this is from Microsoft. And so if you want to just do a practice by yourself, just go ahead and create your own spreadsheet. It's really easy. There's nothing special about this, and you don't need me to do this, and you could just watch the videos over and over again, right? So what we're going to do here is try to help people pay off their debts. So we have these four debts, 15,000 credit card debts, 30,000 student loans, and 20 in auto loans, which is not bad. And we have about $915 left over in savings, which is pretty good, right? Especially if you're making, $4,000 of income. I know there are people out there, and again, I say this a lot, is that there are random people who email me their spreadsheets and they're making like 9, 10, 11 grand, and they have like, $100 to $1,000 left over a month. And I think if I were at that point where I was making that much money and I had only that little left over, then this is especially going to be helpful to you. Now, if you have $1,000 left over and you're making 4,600 a month, that's pretty good, but it's all relative, right? So so the first things that we have to do is when doing velocity banking is we're going to need a budget. So we certainly did that, and then now the next thing we need is a line of credit as our main operating account. So what is a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again, right? So we have two credit cards for that. We can certainly use these credit cards, but I prefer to use either a personal or home equity line of credit just because it's a lot more flexible, and I would actually use both. I would use both a credit card and a personal line or home equity line of credit, just because each one of those tools has their own advantages and disadvantages. But let's just assume that we have not 100,000, maybe like a $20,000 personal line of credit. And here's the thing: if you ever get into a lot of debt, the worst time to ever get more credit is when you need it, right? So this is why it's important that you build a strong foundation for your finances very early in your life rather than waiting until you get into too much debt to figure out like, hey, I want to do something, right? And that's just kind of the way it is. I know a lot of you might feel angry about that, but that's why, you know, banks in general, that's how they become so profitable because they only lend to people who don't really need the money, right? So just be aware of that, okay? But let's assume we have access to a 20 grand line of credit, and there's two rules to the game: same income, so 4,600, although more income is great, and no savings, right? And what we're going to do is transfer some debts, and the entire process of velocity banking is you take your entire paycheck, put it into a line of credit, and then you take your expenses out of that line of credit, okay? So now let's go ahead and do this. We're going to just do some re-engineering of our expenses right here. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and move these two credit cards to this line of credit. So this is going to be 15 grand, right? So 15 grand. And now let's go ahead and recalculate our expenses. So this is going to be zero. This is going to be zero because it's paid off. And now what's our cash flow? So C2 minus C3. That's going to be 1415. So without really doing anything other than a transfer, now we got increasing this number, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do is just do a calculations, and I just do the same calculations every single time, which is you get this number, add it, the previous interest, the previous balance. Now, if it's month zero, you don't have any interest because that's calculated when you get the first statement, and then you get your cash flow, so 1415.05, and then you also calculate the interest because after every month the interest is going to be calculated and you have to pay that off. So multiply it by 0.15, which is 15%, and you divide by 12, right? If you had to pay $2,000 of interest in 1 month, that would be insane. But I used to get confused about this too, but luckily you just need to divide by 12, and it's a lot less dramatic. So you do have to pay something to use a line of credit, but not the entire thing. And then so now it's going to take us about you see right here, 11 months to pay this off. Okay, so and then we're just going to mark that as a milestone. So these two credit cards, some of you might be freaking out about, oh my goodness, I have $15,000 in credit cards. Um, but it's not really a big deal if you know how to pay it off quickly and you have the right tools available. So 15K credit card debt, and what was that? 11 months. 11 months. Sweet. Now, this person, now normally I might say, hey, you might be able to take a home equity line of credit, but this person is not a homeowner, right? So this person might be living in a luxury apartment, one of like one bed, one bath. I've lived in one of those, and I lived in it for a year. And when I lived in it for a year, it was only about 1,200 a month. But usually, like when you first move in, the prices are really cheap, and then they keep raising the rent on you. So that's why eventually I bought a home because I could either pay 1,200 or 1,300 a month for a luxury apartment, or I could buy a three bed, three bath house for 900 a month. Isn't that crazy? Like, see, like the amount of house that you get has nothing to do with like how good the house is. It's just based on supply and demand. So if you're in the area that's going to be recently be built, but you're able to, you're okay with maybe like a longer commute time or you work from home, sure, go for it, right? So that's why, not all finance is based on, or costs of goods and services based on what is rational or you would think makes sense, right? All right. So now 15K, 11 months. Now we have to figure out again, this is going to be more one of the more easier cases because again, I sometimes see your spreadsheets and you have like 10 to 15 debts and it's like, ooh, that's really hard. But here now we have to figure out which one are we going to pay off. Try to pay off first, the student loan or the auto loan, and that's a really good question, right? So there's two ways of figuring out which debts to pay off. So this is the traditional debt payoff criteria where you get the lowest balance, highest interest rate, and highest payment. And the second one is called the cash flow index. So let's try to look at this one first. The lowest balance, the highest interest rate, and the highest payment. So which one has the lowest balance? I don't know yet because I have to recalculate that after 11 months, but it's probably this auto loan right here. This one has the highest interest rate, and then this one has the highest payment. I'm assuming it's going to be the auto loan, even though it has a lower interest rate. But let's figure out after 11 months what the interest rate is. So it'll be 30,000. Not the interest rate, the balance, my bad. 30,000 at 5.5%. And if you have a student loans for 10 years, right? Totally forgot about that until I like re-looked that up on Navient.com. All right, so 35.5, and this will be 11 months and 27 grand. Okay, so let's just write that here. 27 grand, and then the auto loan 20,000 3%, 20,000 3% for 5 years, right? And then we're gonna look at month 11, which is gonna be 16 grand. Okay. Okay. So this one has the highest interest rate. This one has the highest payment, and this one has the lowest balance. So I think based on the traditional debt criteria, probably go with this one. We can also use the cash flow index, right? So statement balance over the monthly payment. So let's go ahead and calculate that. We'll call that the CFI. So I'm gonna calculate this right here and then just erase it right after. But what you do is you basically just take the statement balance, so 27,883.06, and then you divide it by 325.58, right? So that'll give you a number 85.64, and this one is 16554.03 divided by 359.37, right? And basically, what this means here is ignore the dollar sign because it's just probably the formatting. That you could think of this as a ranking system. So think of it like this: the lower the number, it basically means if you pay it off, you get more bang for your buck. So would you rather pay $27,000 to get $325 back, or $16,000 to get $359 back? Right? And the lower the number, that's easier to justify paying it off, regardless of the interest rate. So We could pay off the whole entire thing. Actually, we can't because, well, I guess we could. Another thing too is if you're really considerate about the interest rate, because I think if you move the whole thing over, you'll actually pay a little bit more interest than if you just pay directly with your savings, right? So one of the things that you might be able to do if you want to prevent something called segregation of income, so you can put your money in one place, is simply just transfer it in little chunks and then just pay the whole thing off after maybe two or three. You could do that. Let's just say that I'm lazy and I just don't want the payment, even if I pay a little bit more, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And then what we can do is just add this right here. Okay. So now, what's our new cash flow? So this is gone. The auto loan's gone. So now our new cash flow is 1774.42, right? So now we just keep paying that off. Okay. So this is going to be 1774.42, and then take a look at that. So after in 21 months, so it's pretty much in 10 months, we have this car loan uh, completely paid off. So now let's go ahead and do this. So this is going to be 35K, and how many months? This is going to be. So let me think about this 1 second. 11 months. And so now, actually, I don't even have to think about it. I just have to copy it. 21 months. All right, so after 21 months, let's take a look at our new balance of that student loan. So 30,000, 5.5, and yeah, in not, oops, 10, and then it'll be 5.5. Oopsie. Okay. All right, so now let's take a look at what the balance is after 21 months. So that's going to be 25K. Okay. So let's go ahead and copy that. 25K. All right. So now 25K, let's calculate that new cash flow index. So it'll be 25,863.95 divided by 325.58. So 79.44. So again, we might, and this just depends on you, not want to move the entire thing over into that line of credit and just do it off in maybe little chunks. So like equivalent to your paycheck. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I have a Velocity Banking cheat sheet calculator that does all the calculations for you. So like it's a little bit more accurate than what I'm doing right now because I'm just kind of doing cowboy math. But if you just kind of put the loan terms here, so for example, $30,000, 30,000. What's the current balance? Which is what is the current balance right now? It's 25 grand. 25,863. Oopsie. And let me actually erase this. Okay, so now this is the current balance. The interest rate is, I think, 5.5, 10 years, and what's the payment amount? It's 32558. Okay, and let's say, so I'm just going to play around with this. And again, this is a velocity banking calculator provided by Renatus. And if you're a Renatus student, you could get this. And this is where I actually first learned velocity banking from. And full disclosure, I actually am an independent contracted marketer, just meaning that if you ever decide to enroll through me through their classes, I get a little bit of commission. All right, so now let's go ahead right here and just put some of this in. So we'll say this is 4,600 income, and the expenses everything except for the loan. So this would be 2,600 as the living expenses, right? And let's just play around with this number. So let's say I decide to put the entire thing into the line of credit, right? So what if I do that? So 25,863.95. Okay, so originally I was going to pay $6,000, and the interest that I'm going to pay is $2,000, putting the entire thing into a line of credit, right? But let's just do like little chunks and see what difference that makes, if any. So 4,600. So remember this number, 2 grand, 2,100, right? So you see how you save like 1 grand in interest, right? So this is why I say like you don't just blindly, if you're going to do velocity banking, you can do two things, right? You could just put your entire page, your savings into that student loan, and that'll probably be the most, if in terms of interest savings, it's just going to be pretty much the same as doing velocity banking, right? But will most people do that? Probably not, just because money into the student loan is money that's gone, and then just use your line of credit. Um, I'm sorry, let me say that again. Money that you directly overpay into a loan is money you can never really get back, right? You can't call a student loan company and says, "Hey, I overpaid $1,700. Can I get that money back?" Right? No one's ever going to say that and say yes to that. But the other thing is, you have two credit cards and a line of credit as a backup, and you can still do that. An issue with that is that you're going to experience something called segregation of income. And so this is the reason, and I'm not going to go to this in too much into detail in this video, why I get spreadsheets of people who make 10, 11 grand a month and they have 15 debts. Because what happens is that when you are working out of a position where your money is doing 10 things, 12 things at once, and you have more payments added on to your list. Now, if you only have one payment left and you're going to have one additional credit card payment, that's not really a big deal, right? But think about, how did you get there? Okay? You got there because you allowed yourself to get an extra payment, and then one extra payment needs to another extra payment. And then if that's kind of like, I know. Here's the thing. A long time ago, I used to make fun of like slippery slopes, right? Like, oh, slippery slopes. Why would that happen? If you let this happen, oh, the gates of hell will break loose, right? Now look at where we are today as a society because we let too many slippery slopes happen, right? I'm not going to explain what I'm actually talking about, but if you allow yourself to have your money work in 20 different places at once and have extra payments just because you want to use a backup, that's up to you. And if you can effectively do that, that's perfectly fine. Now, if you just use velocity banking and have your money parked in one place, you're still going to do the same thing. You might have to pay a little bit more, right? Because you're using a higher interest line of credit to pay off a 5.5%. But just but again, this is why like both options are valid, but it's just up to you. I just prefer to use the line of credit just because it's easier for me and I don't really have to think about it. That's really what it is. All right. So let me go back here. So we see 1,100, and let's just see if we increase it what the effect is. So if, let's say we do $5,000 chunks. Interesting. It actually decreases, right? Even so, I'm gonna have to take a look into that. But again, just play around with the calculator, and some of this is just the estimated averages too. But let's just do $6,000. See, it goes back up again. So there must be some sweet spot that I may not be aware of, and probably based on the average daily balance. But let's do 10,000, right? See, 10,000 doesn't really make that much of a difference either. But it's when you put the whole entire thing, 25,863.95, 863.95, you see this kind of doubles, right? So you do pay it off quicker, but it doubles, and it's just, you don't need to put the whole entire thing into the line of credit, is my point. So let's go back here. We'll say $5,000 chunks. So 1.1 years, and I'll just say, so 35 months. What's 1.1 years in terms of months? Or I can just do this 21 divided by 12 plus 1.1. And those, so now this is going to be 2.85 years. And how much do we pay off in total? Which is 65K, right? Because it's a $30,000 paid off. And then now we got $2,100 going into our savings every single month. Whoopsie. 2,100. And then the next month is times two, and then now we should have a boatload of savings. And then we can go on vacations and trips with our savings and do whatever we want, right? But yeah, so this is it for velocity banking. Um, so that's it for today. Just another Excel practice. Again, the ones that I actually really love working on is the one where you get like 15 debts. But if I do those spreadsheets, I'll probably be here for like an hour, I think. Because, but the basic principle is the same, whether you're doing one, two loans or one, two credit cards versus, the 15 debts spreadsheet. But maybe I might just do one of those just because those are a lot more fun to work with. All right. Have a great day, everybody. If you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google Form link below. We'll get on a one-on-one Zoom call to figure out your goals, needs, and see if you're a good fit for a group to learn about financial literacy and real estate investing. All right. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll speak next time.